purpose. The author's purpose is what we're trying to get at is, why did the author write this? So anytime you pick up something that has been written, you want to think to yourself, why did the author write this? What's the motivation? What is it that the author wants to achieve? So it's the reason that they decided to write about something in the first place. Why is it important? So why do we care about what the author's purpose is? Can't I just pick it up and read it? Well, if we know why the author is writing the text, then it helps us understand and remember what we've read. There's also the part that we want to be cautious about believing what we read. So sometimes people want us to believe something, and we really should be skeptical about it. So we need to know why the author is writing something so that we are not scammed or duped into believing something that really isn't true. And then we also need to understand the author's purpose so that we can evaluate the writing. And by that, I mean not to give the author a grade on what they did, but to see if they have achieved what they were trying to do. And we do this a lot. If we pick up a book and start to reading it, a book that is a novel, a piece of fiction, and it doesn't entertain us, it doesn't get us interested in what the author is saying, we put the book down and don't finish reading it because we've evaluated it to say the author did not achieve the purpose of getting me interested and entertaining me. So I'm not going to finish reading that. Here's an example of some writing, and let's see if we can just look at it and determine what the author's purpose in writing this was. It's called The Kennewick Man. Archaeologists rely on human remains and historic sites to understand past cultures and peoples. The most important set of human remains that tells the story of early North American life is the skeleton known as Kennewick Man. The skeleton was found in 1996 by 2 college students in the narrow part of the Columbia River near the town of Kennewick, Washington. At first, the skeleton was assumed to be that of a Native American settler from the 1800s. But a study revealed that Kennewick Man was 9,000 years old. So as we look at this writing, we see that the very first thing is telling us archaeologists rely on human remains and historic sites to understand past cultures and peoples. That is a fact. That is a description of what archaeologists do and how they do it. Then it tells us that there is a set of human remains known as the Kennewick Man in North America. It was found. That's another fact. Then it tells us when and where it was found. 2 more facts. So this is a statement that is full of facts. So we can ask ourselves, is the author giving us important information? Is it teaching you about real topics and facts? And I would say yes when I'm reading this particular text. So the author's purpose in this text is to provide facts to the reader, and that means the author's purpose is to inform us. Some examples of informational texts are textbooks, encyclopedias like Wikipedia, and newspapers. So these are all situations where the author is trying to help us understand something. It's providing us information that we don't know, and so that we are better able to understand a situation or a topic. It's full of facts. Here's another text. This one is a speech that was given by Barack Obama in 2008 on the night of Super Tuesday in the primary elections. And at that time, he said, "You see, the challenges we face will not be solved with one meeting in one night. Change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. We are the hope of those boys who have little, who've been told that they cannot have what they dream, that they cannot be what they imagine. Yes, they can." So each one of these sentences is not really a fact. It's a thought, it's an opinion that President Obama had, well, at the time he was Senator Obama, had about our current situation. So if we ask ourselves, what is Barack Obama trying to do with this speech, with this text? We can ask ourselves, does the author want us to agree with his opinion? Does Barack Obama want us to agree with what he is saying? Does he want us to believe or do something? And the answer most clearly is yes. He wants us to, let's go back and look at that again. Change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. So he is asking us to join in with him, to believe that he is the leader that we need, and that he will have some answers for our problems. So he wants us to come on board with him and to believe that he can help us solve the problems that we have in our country. So this kind of text where the author wants us to agree with him or wants us to believe or do something, is that purpose is to persuade us, to convince us to do or believe something. So authors many times persuade us by presenting facts, but then also their opinions. Sometimes we have difficulty figuring out what is a fact and what is an opinion, and that we need to look at. Can a fact is something that can be proved, but an opinion is something that really cannot be proved. If we look back at Barack Obama's speech, can we really prove that we are the change that we seek? It's a strong belief that he holds and that I hold, but it really cannot be proven. So sometimes people are using facts and opinions to convince us of something that is not in our best interest. So none of these examples that I have right here are those kinds of situations. This one is an advertisement, Clorox disinfecting wipes. You might see down there that there's an opinion, makes cleanup and disinfecting a breeze. Well, it's hard to prove what a breeze is, what that person means. We think it means it's easy. But that is an opinion. And I happen to like Clorox disinfecting wipes, and I happen to agree with that opinion. I think they do make cleanup a breeze, especially when I have to clean off the door handles every day. Here's another piece that is explaining the difference between the impact of choosing a small fry and a diet soda over a supersized fry and a regular soda in how many calories that you take in. And this is a public service announcement. Really, it was produced by the city of New York, trying to get people to eat healthier. So there's nothing wrong with trying to get people to eat healthier. That's great. And they're using facts to help us believe that we should choose something different, that we should choose a diet soda and a small fry, or that we should choose to watch how many calories we take in to help us manage our weight better. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but we do need to consider who is telling us the story. So in this case, Clorox will benefit if we buy their wipes because they make money every time we buy them. In this case, the city of New York will benefit, as will we. The city of New York will have less people who have a weight problem, and that puts less stress on our hospitals. And we feel better when we're not overweight or we're not eating unhealthily. So these are important things. Barack Obama's speech, what he was saying was he wanted us to vote for him, and there is nothing wrong with that. So knowing what the author is trying to get us to do is really important. In this case, I don't disagree with any of these things they're trying to persuade me to do, but I need to be careful so that I'm not scammed or encouraged to do something that is really not in my best interest. Here's another text: understanding image editing. We see digital image files every day in a wide range of places. Whenever you see a picture on a computer or a smartphone, you're looking at a digital image file. When you take a picture with a digital camera, you're saving it as an image file. Even the images you see offline, like those in newspapers and magazines, probably started as digital image files before they were printed. Every digital photo is made up of pixels, often abbreviated as px. You can think of a pixel as a tiny square that uses a specific color. When you look at an image file on a computer, you're really looking at thousands and thousands of pixels. But because each pixel is so small, you normally won't notice each of them unless you zoom in. So what is the author's purpose in this case? So we start off by telling us what digital image files are, where you see them, how you create them, even if you don't know it. And then it explains to us what pixels are and how they're used in creating a digital image file. So is the author trying to tell us how to do something or how something works? In this case, the author is trying to tell us what a digital image file is and how that works. So the author's purpose here is to explain how it works or how to do something. So if the author is trying to tell us how something works, like space travel or bridges, or how you can do something like grow vegetables or build a fire, the writing will contain instructions or steps to follow or diagrams or illustrations. So things like using WikiHow, which explains how to do almost anything, or a recipe book, or even the book about, this book is called Structures or Why Things Don't Fall Down. So it's explaining to us how engineers create things so that they stand up, which is a fascinating subject. I don't know really understand how bridges work. I mean, I know what they tell me, but really, how did somebody figure that out? It's a very cool topic. So another purpose that an author can have is to explain to us how to do something. Here's another kind of text. This is a poem called Dreams by Langston Hughes. Hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is a broken-winged bird that cannot fly. Hold fast to dreams, for when dreams go, life is a barren field, frozen with snow. So when I read this poem, I definitely have images in my mind. I see a bird with a broken wing. I see an empty field, snow covered, nothing growing there. What is Langston Hughes' purpose in this dream? Is the author using adjectives and detail so you can imagine or understand something? Well, I definitely can imagine what that broken winged bird looks like or what that empty field looks like. And I understand the feeling that I have when I see a broken winged bird. I feel helpless. When I see a barren field, it makes me a little sad and empty feeling. So, what is the author's purpose? Is to describe something, is to paint a picture in my mind. So we can think of short stories, poems, novels that describe characters and settings so that I can imagine them. But other nonfiction texts also use description. So catalogs that explain courses or products that I might be interested in, travel guides, or books about animals, or anything else that I really I don't know about and want to imagine. Real things that I may not have seen, or places that I may not be able to go. Here's our next text. Over the next few afternoons, oh, excuse me, this is an excerpt from Matilda by Roald Dahl. Over the next few afternoons, Mrs. Phelps could hardly take her eyes from the small girl sitting for hour after hour in the big armchair at the far end of the room with the book on her lap. It was necessary to rest it on the lap because it was too heavy for her to hold up, which meant she had to sit leaning forward in order to read. So this is a description of Matilda in the library when she was entertaining herself while her mother was playing bingo, and Mrs. Phelps is the librarian. So this is something that possibly could have happened. I mean, a little girl could have walked to the library and sat there reading a book, and the librarian could have been watching her. But what is Roald Dahl's purpose? If you've seen any of his movies or read any of his books, you know that he is going to be telling us a story. He is going to be telling us, creating characters and setting and events, which is going to entertain us. It's going to make us feel a lot of emotions, love, sadness, humor, anger. Those are all things that an author can do when their purpose is to entertain us. So they can entertain us by telling a story or help us escape. But they can also write a story that presents a moral or a lesson. And in many cases, that lesson is maybe something that is just describing for us how people in a certain time and a certain setting may have felt, or the things that they have done, or what their lives were like. It could also be something where the lesson is, this is what happens when people help each other. Or in this particular case, this is a book that I just read recently. Britt Marie was here, and it was about a very strange woman who left her home and went and lived in a new place. And just by being herself, she was able to make friends and help other people. It was a very lovely story which you did not expect to turn out that way. But the lesson was, give people a chance to be who they are before you judge them. Sometimes, though, like with a lot of children's books, the authors just want us to relax and have a good time. And Pete the Cat is certainly, kids love to read about Pete the Cat, and they just relax and have fun. Now this one, I was actually looking at this because I was thinking about it for an informational text. But actually, Neil deGrasse Tyson is very entertaining. So he explains things in a way that we can understand them. But he also lets us have a good time while he's doing it. So a lot of times where we presented these authors' purpose as being very separate, many times you can find that the author has included a lot of these purposes. So Neil deGrasse Tyson's purpose is to explain and inform us about astrophysics, but he does it in a way that is entertaining. So he's actually got two purposes. I want to inform you about something, but I also want you to have a good time while you're doing it. And with this story, Britt Marie was here, Frederick Backman, the author, wants us to have a good time and relax and be entertained while we read the story, but he also wants to teach us something about how to live our own lives. So there is multi-purposes going on here. In fact, when I was looking for stories that were simply just about entertainment, I thought it was really hard to find one. I thought most authors who write a story also want to tell us something, also want us to think deeply about some aspect of life. And that's why I actually went to a children's book. Actually, I think Pete the Cat, in this case, you can actually learn counting while you're doing it, if I remember that story right. So even there, the author is teaching us something. And here's another series of books, for children's books, where we are entertained but also learn something. The Magic Treehouse series. Students learn all about many different topics, and Mary Pope Osborne has created a series where children can learn while they're being entertained. So knowing the author's purpose can help us understand, remember, and evaluate what we have read. It's really important that when we pick up a text, that we know what the author is trying to do. So we may uncover some things as we read. So we always have to be evaluating our own understanding of what we are reading. But the idea is that when we come to something where we know that this is an informational text, we approach it very differently than when we pick up a book that we think we're going to just relax and escape. When we are trying to help to understand and learn from a text, we usually even sit in a different way. Maybe we sit up at a desk and we have a pencil and a piece of paper in case we want to take notes. Whereas when we are reading something that where our main purpose is to be entertained, we probably slouch or lie down on the sofa and do not intend to take notes or necessarily even work our brains really hard. So there is a very different stance that the reader takes, knowing that I am trying to understand or learn from this text versus I am just reading this to relax and escape. Having that helps us remember and understand what we've read, and it also helps us evaluate whether the author has achieved that purpose. So I hope this has been helpful, and I will see you next time.